Okay, so this lesson is going to be really, really easy and quick, but we do need to go over what y-intercept from a graph is. So this is something you learned during the school year, but we're going to kind of just reiterate it because a lot of y'all will struggle with this sometimes because even though it's super easy, sometimes you get confused between the y and the x-intercept. So up here at the top, I'm going to say the y-intercept is the point where the line intersects the y-axis. Okay, and it's super important that we talk about the y-axis because that's why it's the y-intercept. Okay, you do not want to mess with the x-axis. Okay, and remember, we have our x-axis here, so if you want to label this one, we could just say x-axis. But this is our y-axis. Y-axis is always vertical, so this is y, and we only care about this axis, okay? We don't care about what crosses over here, so you just ignore the x-axis, or we can even just cross it out. Something important to know that y-intercept does have a label or a variable that they like to use, and we call it b. Okay? So if you ever see a formula or an equation, we're using this equation, y equals mx plus or minus, because it could be plus or minus b. And we only care about the b today. We're not going to work on m or x yet. So let's just figure out finding b, and then we'll figure out which equation matches the graph. So if we look at graph number 1, we're only caring about where this line is crossing the y-axis. So all I do is I look here and I look at the line and I figure out where they intersect. I'm going to put a point right there and circle it. Okay, I only care about this y-axis and where it's crossing. Here, I know a lot of y'all just go straight there to the y-axis because it's easy and you're used to looking at the x, but that is wrong. We don't want that. That's an x-intercept. Okay, so go ahead and look at our answer choices. We know that the b is positive 3, so then I just go and look, and it looks like b is positive 3 is there. All right, number 2. I'm still looking at the y-axis, always. If I ever talk about y-intercept, it's the y-axis, and this is our x-axis. So let's figure out where the x-axis is, and let's get rid of it. So looks like it's crossing the x-axis here, so I just cross that out. I don't want that. I only want the y-axis, so I go down here, and there's my point where it's crossing. Circle it. So I would say b is about at negative 3, so c. Pretty easy. So these questions you should not get wrong because they're just looking for the point where it's crossing the vertical axis, only y. Okay, we don't care about x. We don't want that. Now it gets a little bit more complicated when you have equations, but it's really not. So let's move down. And remember, I'll even write it down here again. We want y equals mx plus or minus b. I know that looks confusing, but you're just going to be given numbers, and all you care about is the one that's by itself. The number that does not have an x, that's what you care about. Okay? So let's figure out, for this one, what is my y-intercept? So I have my y-axis and my x-axis. Okay? I don't care about the x-axis, but it doesn't look like there's anything really crossing there. And then I go to the y-axis, and it looks like the only point where it's crossing is right here at 0. So I'm going to say that b equals 0. But then I look here, do you see 0? No. But I can get rid of these. So I know it's not positive 2, because that number's by itself. That would say the b is 2. This one's saying the b is 3. This one's saying the b is negative 3. But look here, if you have a blank, that means the b is 0. Okay? They just leave it off. So this would be our correct equation. And you don't have to worry about, it looks like all the slopes are the same. I made it pretty easy. Whenever you learn about slopes, sometimes they'll throw in different slopes, but you don't have to worry about that right now. All right, and then last one. My y-axis is here. My x-axis is here. I want to get rid of my x-intercept so it doesn't look like I have any. Nothing's crossing here. Now I'm going to go to the y-axis, and I go all the way down to where it intersects, so right here. So it looks like my b is positive 2. And all my slopes are the same, so I'm just looking for which one has mx plus 2. So it looks like right here, that is the correct equation, so I'd say D is my answer. All right, that's all you're doing today. You're just looking for the y-intercept. On lesson 2, you're going to be learning about how to find the slope, and that's also something that you've already learned this year. So it should be a pretty easy week. Make sure that you get your assignments done on quizzes. Okay, so make sure you finish everything on quizzes for this lesson and the next lesson. Good luck.